The first thing I heard when I opened my eyes again was the hiss of the school bus brakes outside my dorm window, and for one stupid second, I thought hell had installed a morning bell. Then I smelled floor cleaner, instant coffee, and the sharp plastic scent of the brand new clipboard on my desk, and my heart stopped so violently I forgot how to breathe. I was not in the hospital corridor where I died. I was not kneeling on the freezing tile outside the disciplinary office, clutching a shredded transportation report while 47 parents screamed my name like I had personally thrown their children into ruin. I was in room 414 of Maple Dormitory, wearing my winter uniform, with my hair still wet at the ends, my alarm still screaming at 5:12 a.m., and the red folder on my desk still sealed. The folder. I stared at it the way a drowning woman stares at the surface of the water. On the front, in Vice Principal Kang's stiff handwriting, were the words that had destroyed my life the first time: Grade 12 Integrated Assessment Transport List. Final copy. Do not duplicate. My hands shook so hard the blanket slid from my lap. Outside, the practice bus gave another low, lazy cough, as if it had been waiting for me to remember. That bus had been the beginning. No, that was a lie. The beginning had been my need to be liked. The bus was only where everyone found out how expensive that need could become. In my last life, I had let my class monitor, Seo Yura, check one thing on that list. One thing became 2 missing signatures, 2 changed bus numbers, 1 swapped route, and by sunrise the whole of Class 12-3 had boarded the wrong bus for what they thought was the final integrated assessment rehearsal. They were taken not to the real examination center, but to the practice campus across the river, where empty desks, fake name tags, and a smiling camera crew waited for a promotional training drill. By the time anyone realized, the actual assessment doors had closed. The university recommendation quota vanished. Scholarships collapsed. Parents demanded a culprit. Yura cried prettily in front of everyone and said, "I trusted Hannah with the list. She promised it was correct. I was Hannah. I had not promised anything. I had only been foolish enough to hand over the final copy for 30 seconds. 30 seconds was all it took for a girl with a sweet voice and a knife hidden behind her teeth to ruin me. The school expelled me quietly. My mother sold her shop to pay compensation we did not owe. My father stopped looking me in the eye, and the classmates who once borrowed my notes crossed the street when they saw me. 3 years later, when the truth finally leaked from a retired driver who confessed Yura had bribed him to follow her revised list, no one apologized loudly enough to reach the grave I fell into after stepping in front of a delivery truck on a rainy night. Yet here I was, alive again at 5:12 a.m., with the red folder untouched, the practice bus waiting below, and Seo Yura not yet wearing tears like jewelry. I pressed my palm flat over the folder and whispered, "Not this time." The alarm kept screaming. I shut it off. The silence that followed was not peaceful. It was loaded. It felt like the whole universe had leaned close to hear what I would do next. I did not rush. That was the first difference between dead Hannah and reborn Hannah. Dead Hannah rushed because she believed urgency was proof of sincerity. Dead Hannah answered every message immediately, carried everyone's extra forms, printed everyone's missing homework, and smiled when people called her dependable because she did not understand that dependable was often just another word for usable. Reborn Hannah moved slowly. I washed my face in cold water until my reflection stopped looking like a ghost and started looking like a witness. I tied my hair into a low ponytail, pinned my fringe back, and opened the red folder only after locking my dorm door. Inside were 4 sheets: the final student bus allocation, the emergency contact cross-check, the teacher confirmation page, and the driver route approval. 48 students in class 12-3, including me. 2 official buses for the assessment center, Bus 2 and Bus 3. 1 separate practice bus, marked P1, scheduled to take the drama club volunteers and student council film team to the old campus for a safety drill. In my last life, the list the class saw had been altered so that all 48 students appeared under P1, with a fake note saying the assessment center had moved to the old campus for integrated simulation. It sounded official enough at dawn, especially when shouted by Yura with a teacher's lanyard around her neck. I remembered how everyone had groaned, climbed aboard, and trusted the neat columns because the school logo sat at the top. I remembered standing beside the luggage bay, confused, holding an empty clipboard because Yura had said she would bring the final copy after fixing the formatting. I remembered her smiling at me through the bus window. Not guilty. Not nervous. Smiling. The memory made my fingers curl, but anger was useless unless it learned discipline. I took photos of every page, not on my school phone, which could be confiscated, but on the small backup phone my cousin had given me years ago, and I had never used in the first life, because I thought carrying 2 phones looked dramatic. I uploaded the photos to 3 places, emailed them to myself, and then did something dead Hannah would have considered paranoid. I took a sewing needle from my emergency kit, heated the tip with a lighter, and made one tiny dot through the bottom left corner of the final list, through the red folder behind it, through the teacher confirmation page, through everything. Almost invisible unless you knew where to look. Then I signed my initials across the folder seal, covered the seal with clear tape, and slid the whole thing into my blazer's inner pocket. Only then did I print a second list from last week's draft file, the one before Vice Principal Kong corrected the bus numbers. It was not wrong enough to hurt anyone permanently, but wrong enough to expose whoever tried to use it. On that draft, I wrote one line at the top in a font Yura always used because she thought rounded letters made official notices look friendlier. Updated final boarding list after morning route revision. Report directly to Practise, Bus P1. I left that decoy on my desk under my open pencil case, exactly where a helpful friend might see it if she entered without permission. Then I sat on my bed and waited for the knock I knew would come. It came at 5:27. 3 soft taps, then one bright whisper through the door. "Hannah? Are you awake?" "It's me." Of course it was her. Seo Yura never entered a crime scene looking like a criminal. She entered like sunlight through lace curtains, soft and flattering, making everyone inside feel guilty for having shadows. I opened the door halfway. She stood there in her cream school coat, hair curled at the ends, cheeks pink from the cold, holding 2 canned coffees like offerings. Behind her smile, her eyes were already searching my room. In the previous life, I had stepped aside without thinking. This time, I kept one hand on the doorframe. "You're early," I said. "You said you were nervous about the list," she replied, lifting the coffee. "So, I thought I'd help. You know Kong same gets scary if anything is messy." Her voice was perfect. It always had been. Sweet enough for teachers, humble enough for parents, casual enough for classmates, and just wounded enough to make refusal look cruel. I looked at the coffee cans. Last life, I drank one. 10 minutes later, my stomach twisted, and I spent the most important part of boarding day in the bathroom while Yura helped organize the class outside. At the time, I blamed nerves. Now, I could almost laugh. "I'm not drinking coffee before transport duty," I said. Her smile held, but something behind it blinked. "Oh. Since when?" "Since I died," I wanted to say. Instead, I smiled back. "Since today." She tilted her head, trying to peer past me. "Did you finish printing? I can check names against the dorm roll." "No need." "Hannah, don't be stubborn. I'm class monitor. And I'm transport lead." The sentence came out calmly, but it landed like a slap because in the old life, I never used my role as a wall. I used it as a bridge, and everyone walked across me. Yura's fingers tightened around the coffee. Then her gaze flicked over my shoulder and landed on the papers visible on my desk. There it was, the tiny spark. Hunger dressed as concern. "Fine," she said softly, "but at least hurry. Everyone's already confused about the buses." I heard there was a route revision. "Did you?" I asked. "From who?" "Just people." "Which people?" Her lashes fluttered. The pretty wounded look appeared like a stage light. "Why are you interrogating me?" "I came to help." In my last life, that line would have made me panic. I would have apologized, opened the door wider, handed her everything, begged her not to misunderstand. This time, I stepped into the hallway and pulled the door shut behind me. Then helped by waking the West Wing. "I'll handle the list." For half a breath, Yura forgot to be soft. Her eyes went flat. Then the sweetness returned so fast anyone else would have missed the switch. "Okay," she said, passing me one can of coffee anyway. For later. I accepted it because refusing every trap makes a trapper careful. Then I walked down the hallway with the correct list against my heart and the poisoned coffee cold in my hand, feeling Yura's stare between my shoulder blades like a blade that had missed the first cut. The dormitory corridors were full of half-awake students dragging bags, buttoning coats, complaining about the hour, and trusting the morning to be ordinary. That was the cruelest part of reliving a disaster. Everyone else still had their innocence. Jiso from the front row was yelling that someone stole her hair straightener. Miho had 2 slices of toast in his mouth and his tie around his forehead like a bandana. The twins from the science track were arguing over whether the assessment center allowed calculators with transparent covers. I knew each of their future faces from the last life, red-eyed, furious, betrayed, looking at me across the auditorium as if my apology could reopen the closed doors. Some of them had hated me with reason because they believed the evidence. Some had hated me because hatred was easier than admitting they had followed a pretty girl onto a bus without reading the sign. Seeing them alive, sleepy, unbroken, made something in my chest ache. I did not want revenge on them. I wanted them safe. I wanted them forced to look at the truth early enough that it did not cost them everything. That was why my plan had to be cruel in shape, but clean in outcome. No one would miss the actual assessment this time. No one would lose scholarships. No one would be trapped at the old campus for hours while administrators fought over liability. They would board the practice bus, yes, but only for 3 minutes, long enough for the lie to breathe in public, long enough for Yura to put her fingerprints all over it, long enough for the cameras and teachers to see who is steering them. Then the real list would appear. Then the route would correct. Then the knife would be found in the hand that held it. At the stairwell, I saw Mr. Choi, our homeroom teacher, carrying a thermos and looking like a man who had already lost a fight with Dawn. In the first life, he trusted Yura because she brought him a neat copy before I came down. He signed without reading carefully and later saved himself by saying I had provided the wrong version. This time, I intercepted him before he reached the lobby. "Sir," I said, "the final transport folder." He blinked. "Already?" "Yes." "Please check the seal." I handed him the red folder, but I did not let go until his eyes focused. Vice Principal Kong said the final copy must remain sealed until boarding confirmation. "I photographed it in your presence last night after printing, and I'd like you to verify the seal is unbroken." Mr. Choi stared at me as if I had started speaking legal language in ancient Greek. "Hannah, it's too early for this much seriousness." It was serious enough for Kong Same to write "do not duplicate." That woke him. He adjusted his glasses and looked at the folder. My initials. The tape. The tiny needle mark, invisible to him but not to me. "Good," he said slowly. "Keep it with you until the buses arrive." They've arrived. Already. The practice bus is outside. The official buses are scheduled for 5:55. He frowned. "Then why are students gathering at the East Gate?" My stomach went cold, not from fear, but recognition. The old rhythm had begun. Somewhere behind us, a student shouted, "Yura said P1 is ours." Mr. Choi looked toward the lobby. I tucked the folder back inside my blazer and smiled without warmth. "Sir, that's what I wanted you to see." The East Gate looked exactly as it had in the nightmare I had carried for 3 years. Frost silvered the pavement. The old campus practice bus sat closest to the entrance, hazard lights blinking amber, its side marked with a temporary magnetic sign P1 training route. The driver, Mr. Beck, leaned against the door smoking an unlit cigarette because school policy banned him from lighting it near students. He had been the retired driver who confessed too late in my first life, voice shaking in a blurry online interview, saying a student with a white ribbon had given him a printed revised list and an envelope of cash, but the school buried it as unverified memory. Now he was here, younger, heavier, and pretending not to watch Yura stand beside the bus steps with a clipboard that looked painfully familiar. My decoy clipboard. My dorm room clipboard. I had left it on my desk to test whether she would steal the bait. She had. A laugh almost escaped me, sharp enough to cut my tongue. Yura had gathered half the class already. She was wearing Mr. Choi's spare lanyard. I wondered how she had gotten it this time. Stolen from his desk? Borrowed with tears? It did not matter. She had it around her neck like authority. Line up by number, she called, bright and efficient. The assessment route was revised. We're taking P1 to the Integrated Simulation Center first, then transferring after attendance. Students groaned but obeyed. Why wouldn't they? The day was confusing, the air was cold, and Yura sounded certain. Certainty is a dangerous perfume. People follow whoever wears enough of it. I stayed behind the stone pillar with Mr. Choi beside me, watching. His frown deepened. Where did she get that list? He muttered. Not for me, I said. Did you tell her there was a route revision? No. Did Vice Principal Kong? No. Then please don't interrupt yet. He looked at me sharply. Hannah, what is going on? There it was. The moment to choose between drama and proof. Dead Hannah would have burst out crying and accused Yura too early, giving her time to twist, deny, and collapse beautifully. Reborn Hannah had learned that truth without timing is just noise. Sir, I said, keeping my voice low, if you stop her now, she'll say she misunderstood. Let her finish taking attendance. Let her state the change clearly. Then ask to compare her list with the sealed folder. Mr. Choi's mouth tightened. He was not stupid. He was tired and conflict-avoidant, but not stupid. He looked at Yura, then at me, then at the folder inside my blazer. Are you saying she fabricated a route notice? I'm saying I want the official list checked before anyone leaves. At that exact second, Yura looked up and saw me. For one beat, the whole morning narrowed to the space between our eyes. She expected panic. She expected me to rush forward, breathless, empty-handed, begging for my clipboard. Instead, I lifted the coffee can she had given me, placed it unopened on the stone ledge, and gave her a small, calm nod. Her smile faltered so quickly it would have looked like a blink to anyone else. Then she turned away and shouted, Everyone board. Quickly. We can't be late because Hannah delayed the morning check. That was clever. I had to give her that. She had already inserted my name into the delay before I even joined the scene. A few students looked around for me. Some frowned. Some laughed because it sounded like the usual thing, Hannah busy, Hannah serious, Hannah making everyone wait with forms. I felt the old shame rise automatically, hot and childish, but I did not feed it. Shame is a trained dog. It runs back to the person who punished you unless you teach it a new name. I let them board. One by one, Class 12-3 climbed onto Practise Bus P1, stamping their feet, fogging the windows, complaining about the heater. Miho waved his toast at me through the glass. Jisoo mouthed, Hurry up. The twins argued all the way up the steps. Even quiet Eunchai, who later in the first life had written an anonymous post calling me a scholarship murderer, boarded with her headphones on, not reading the sign inches from her face. I watched all of them enter the wrong bus and felt no triumph, only a cold, surgical focus. Yura stood at the front, checking names off my decoy list with a silver pen. Silver, not black. In the first investigation, the altered check marks had been silver. I had forgotten that detail until now, and the memory made the world tilt. She had not improvised in the old life. She had planned. She had chosen a pen that photographed poorly under fluorescent light, making it harder to tell whether names had been marked before or after boarding. My fingers curled around the edge of my blazer. Beside me, Mr. Choi whispered, That's enough. I shook my head once. One more sentence. He looked furious now, which was useful. A furious teacher asks better questions than a guilty one. Yura climbed onto the first step of the bus and faced the remaining students near the gate. This is the final revised transport list, she announced, holding the clipboard high. I received it this morning, because Hannah's copy had issues. Anyone not on P1 will be marked absent from assessment transport. There. The lie had a full body now. Head, spine, fingerprints. I stepped out from behind the pillar. Yura, I called. My voice was not loud, but the cold carried it. She turned, and the students inside the bus quieted, as if someone had turned down their volume. I walked toward her slowly, with Mr. Choi at my side. The bus driver straightened. Yura's face brightened too late. Hannah. Finally. I fixed the list for you. Did you? I asked. That's generous. A few students snickered. Yura laughed lightly, but her eyes were measuring distance, exits, witnesses. Don't be upset. You left it messy, and we didn't have time. Where did you receive the revised route notice? Mr. Choi asked. His voice was harder than I had ever heard it in either life. Yura blinked at him. Sir, you told me to help. I asked where you received the route notice. From the transport office. Which staff member? I don't remember the name. It was early. I looked at the clipboard in her hand. Then we should compare it with a sealed final copy. The frost seemed to freeze midair. Yura's fingers tightened around the clipboard. Behind her, 47 faces leaned toward the bus windows, suddenly awake. She recovered beautifully, because predators with pretty faces practice recovery more than honesty. Of course, she said, stepping down from the bus. Compare them. I was only trying to prevent confusion. She held out the clipboard to Mr. Choi, but she angled it so that I could not touch it. Another small thing. Another old thing. In the first life, every piece of evidence passed through hands that were not mine. This time, I did not reach for it. I removed the red folder from my blazer and held it up so the class could see the unbroken seal. The red paper looked almost theatrical against the gray morning. Sir, before opening, please confirm the seal. Mr. Choi inspected it. Unbroken. Please confirm my initials and the tape. Confirmed. Please confirm the folder has been in my possession since I gave it to you at the stairwell and you returned it. Confirmed. Yura's smile thinned. She had expected a list. She had not expected a chain of custody. People like her survive in gaps. Gaps between memory and proof, between responsibility and fatigue, between what everyone assumes and what anyone can demonstrate. I had spent 3 years buried in those gaps. I knew their shape now. Mr. Choi opened the folder. The sound of tape peeling cut through the courtyard. He removed the final bus allocation page and looked from it to Yura's clipboard. His face changed. Not dramatically. Mr. Choi was not built for drama. But his eyes sharpened and the skin around his mouth went pale. Yura, he said, why does your list assign the entire class to practice bus P1? A ripple went through the bus. Someone said, practice? Someone else said, what does that mean? Yura laughed once too high. Because that's the revision. There is no revision, Mr. Choi said. The official buses are Bus 2 and Bus 3. P1 is for the old campus safety drill. Inside the bus, 47 students looked at the sign they had ignored. P1 training route. I watched realization move through them like spilled ink. Jisoo stood so fast she hit her head on the overhead rack. Miho stopped chewing. Eunchai pulled off her headphones. The twins stopped arguing for the first time since kindergarten. Yura's eyes widened, glossy now. Sir, I swear someone gave it to me. Maybe Hannah. Careful, I said. Just one word. Not loud. Not emotional. But it landed because I was smiling. I had never smiled in the old life. I had cried, begged, explained, collapsed. This smile was new, and it frightened her more than shouting would have. Maybe I what? I asked. Maybe you printed the wrong one by mistake, she said, softening instantly. I was trying to save you. From the list in your hand? From your confusion. Then why is my dorm clipboard in your hand? That was the first audible crack. Yura looked down. Students looked down. Mr. Choi looked down. The clipboard was pale blue with a sticker of a crooked cat on the back, a joke gift from my mother. Everyone in class knew it because I carried it constantly. Yura had been too eager to notice the sticker. Or maybe she had noticed and assumed I would be too flustered to point it out. You left it in the common room, she said. No, irraplia. I left it on my desk, inside my locked dorm room. The second crack was louder, because it came from the crowd. Locked. Jisoo said from inside the bus. How did she get it then? Yura turned toward the bus, tears rising like obedient soldiers. I didn't steal anything. The door was open. It wasn't, I said. And there's a camera outside the 4th floor corridor. That was not entirely true. The camera had been broken for months in my first life. But the maintenance request had been filed last week, and I had checked yesterday. A new camera blinked above the vending machine. I did not know if it captured my door clearly. I did not need to know. I only needed Yura to believe it might. Her face drained so quickly, even Mr. Beck looked away. Then, before anyone could speak, the vice principal's black sedan pulled into the gate. Timing, I thought, was the only god I trusted now, and this morning I had built an altar to it. Vice Principal Kong stepped out wearing a charcoal coat and the expression of a woman who considered incompetence a personal insult. In the last life, she arrived after the buses left. This time, she arrived early because at 5:18 a.m., while Yura stood outside my dorm door with drugged coffee and borrowed sweetness, I had sent Kong a message from my backup phone. Possible unauthorized duplicate transport list in circulation. Please verify before departure. She had replied with one word, coming. Now she crossed the courtyard with 2 administrative staff behind her and took in the scene, the entire class sitting on P1, Mr. Choi holding 2 conflicting lists, Yura pale beside the bus, me standing with the opened red folder. Kong did not ask what was happening. Good administrators do not waste the first question on theater. She took Yura's clipboard, scanned it, then scanned the official folder. Who prepared this duplicate? She asked. No one answered. Her gaze moved to Yura's lanyard. Why are you wearing Mr. Choi's staff pass? Yura touched it as if surprised to find it there. He gave it to me to help with boarding. Mr. Choi inhaled sharply. I did not. Sir, you did near the office. My spare lanyard is in my desk drawer. Kong turned to one of the staff. Check his drawer and the faculty room camera. The staff member hurried away. Yura's tears finally spilled, but they did not soften the morning anymore. The class had seen too much structure beneath them. A girl crying after one mistake can look innocent. A girl crying while holding a stolen clipboard, a fake list, and a teacher's lanyard looks like a girl running out of masks. Kong looked at me.
Hanha na.
Official final copy. Here. Chain. Printed under your supervision yesterday at 6:40 p.m., sealed by you. Kept in my possession overnight. Shown to Mr. Choi at 5:36 a.m., seal verified unbroken before opening. Kang's eyebrow lifted slightly. In another life, she might have liked me if I had met her before disaster.
Good, she said.
Then she faced the bus. Everyone off P1.
Now.
The whole class poured out in a confused, embarrassed wave. Shoes hit pavement. Bags dragged. Voices rose. We almost went to the old campus? Why would there be a practice bus? Yura said final revise. No, she said. Hannah delayed it. Did Hannah know? Why didn't Hannah say something earlier? That last question pricked, but I let it. People dislike being shown their own carelessness. They search quickly for a softer target. I did not need their gratitude yet. Gratitude comes late, if it comes at all. Survival had to arrive first. Vice Principal Kong ordered Bus 2 and Bus 3 to pull up to the main gate. The real drivers, already waiting down the service lane because official buses never parked beside practice vehicles, rolled forward. Their route signs displayed the assessment center in bold black letters.
No ambiguity. No simulation.
No old campus. Kong made everyone stand in 2 lines while she personally read the official allocation. This took 8 minutes. 8 minutes in which Yura stood beside the practice bus under the gaze of the entire class, holding nothing now, hands empty and trembling. Mr. Beck tried to shrink behind his steering wheel, but Kong had already noticed him. Driver Beck, she called. Why did you open boarding for students not assigned to your route? He swallowed. Student council told me. Which student? He looked at Yura. Yura looked at the pavement. The silence answered for both of them. Kang's expression did not change, but the air around her became colder. Remain here after departure. Mr. Beck nodded. In the first life, he drove away and became a ghost in the investigation. This time, he was pinned before sunrise. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. He was an adult who had watched 48 students board the wrong bus because a girl handed him paper and confidence. Adults always pretend children trick them with genius, when the truth is usually laziness. Official boarding began. Kong read names. Students stepped onto bus 2 or bus 3 with quieter faces now, each one glancing at the practice bus, as if it had transformed from vehicle to trap. When my name came, I moved toward bus 2, but Kong stopped me with 2 fingers on the folder. "You'll ride with me after I make copies." A murmur ran through the line. Yura looked up. For 1 second, hope flashed in her eyes. Maybe she thought I was being detained. Maybe she thought suspicion could still swing back toward me. Kong killed it without looking at her. "As witness," she added. That word, witness, entered the courtyard like a bell. Not culprit. Not confused girl. Not overdramatic committee member. Witness. I saw Jis's mouth part. I saw Miho look away. I saw Unchai lower her eyes. Something in me that had been clenched since my first death loosened by 1 painful degree. It was not forgiveness. It was oxygen. But Yura was not finished. People like her do not fall because 1 rope snaps. They carry a web. As Kang's assistant photographed both lists, Yura suddenly stumbled forward and grabbed my sleeve. Her fingers were icy. "Hannah," she whispered, but she pitched it just loud enough for the nearest students to hear.
Please.
"Tell them I misunderstood. You know my mother will ruin me if this becomes official." There it was, intimacy as weapon. In public, she wanted me to become cruel if I refused. In private, she wanted my guilt. Her eyes shone, huge and wet. In the first life, those eyes made teachers soften, boys straighten, girls comfort her even while she cut them. She had learned young that beauty plus panic could turn consequences into group projects. I looked down at her hand on my sleeve. "Let go." She flinched as if I had slapped her. "I'm begging you." "No," I said. "You're performing." A gasp came from someone behind us. Yura's lips trembled. "How can you say that? We're friends." We were never friends. The words came out before I knew I would say them, but once they existed, I realized they were the truest thing I had ever spoken to her. Friendship was not what happened when one girl gave, and the other girl took, while smiling. Friendship was not coffee that made your stomach twist, keys borrowed without asking, rumors softened with pity, credit redirected with a laugh. Friendship was not dying under a name someone else dirted. Yura's tears spilled faster. "Hannah, I made one mistake." "Then name the staff member who gave you the revision." She froze. "Name the transport officer who authorized P1. Silence. "Name why you had my clipboard." Silence. "Name why you wore Mr. Choi's lanyard." Her fingers loosened. I stepped back. "You don't want mercy. You want me to help you keep the lie alive." That sentence changed the faces around us more than any accusation had. Because everyone had known a version of that request. Everyone had once been asked by Yura to just say it happened this way. Just don't mention that part. Just help me avoid trouble. Small lies feel harmless until you see them gathered into a machine. Kong watched me for a moment, then looked at Yura. "CO Yura, you are removed from transport duty and student leadership pending investigation. Surrender any school documents and passes." "Vice principal, please," Yura sobbed. "My mother. Your mother is not on the transport list." Kang's tone was flat enough to be legendary. Even in the middle of everything, someone behind me choked on a laugh. Yura heard it. Her cheeks went red, not with shame but rage. For half a second, the crying mask slipped, and the girl underneath looked at me with pure promise. This is not over. I believed her. That was why I had prepared for the second trap. The second trap arrived at 6:23 a.m., exactly 9 minutes after Bus 2 and Bus 3 left for the assessment center with the entire class safely aboard. I was in Vice Principal Kang's sedan, sitting in the back with the red folder on my lap, while Kang's assistant drove and Kong made calls in the passenger seat with the icy efficiency of a general moving troops. Behind us, the buses carried my classmates toward the future they had lost in another life. Ahead of us, the city was turning pale blue, shop shutters still down, crosswalk lights blinking for streets too empty to care. My backup phone buzzed in my blazer pocket. Unknown number. I already knew who it would be. I let it ring once, twice, then answered without speaking. At first there was only breathing. Then Yura's voice, no longer sweet. You think you won because Kong saw a fake list? I looked at Kong. She was still on a call, but her eyes flicked to the rear-view mirror. I put the phone on speaker. I think the buses are going to the right place, I said. Yura laughed softly. It sounded nothing like her school voice. You always were small. One correct bus list, and you think that makes you clean. Clean? You planted that list for me. There it was. The pivot. Did I? You left it where I would find it. You wanted this. You entered my room? Silence. Kong ended her call. The assistant kept driving, eyes forward. Yura realized too late what she had said. That's not. You said I left it where you would find it, I said. Where was that? Everyone knows you leave things everywhere. Inside my locked room? Yura's breathing changed. Listen to me carefully, Hannah. If I go down, I'm not going alone. I already sent the parents' group chat screenshots showing you arguing about the route last night. My heart did not jump. This was expected too. In my last life, fabricated screenshots appeared after the disaster. Messages from me supposedly saying the school changed routes and Yura should help me hide my mistake. At the time, I had screamed that they were fake, but my phone had been conveniently missing for 2 days, returned wiped after the disciplinary board. This time, I had never discussed the route in any chat. I had also replaced my school phone's lock screen with a live timestamp app that recorded unlock attempts. Send them, I said. Yura paused. What? Send them. Are you insane? Maybe. Death changes people. The words slipped out before I could stop them. Kang's head turned slightly, but she said nothing. Yura laughed again, uneasy now. You're trying to scare me.
No.
I'm trying to hear the rest of your plan before the vice principal files the report. Silence. Then, faintly, a car horn on her end. Maybe she was still at the gate. Maybe she had run to the convenience store nearby. In the first life, I never knew where she went after the buses left because I was too busy being blamed. You're on speaker, Yura said. Not a question. Yes. With Kong? Yes. The call ended. Kong did not speak for several seconds. The sedan rolled past the river, and dawn caught on the water in thin silver strips. Finally, she said, Death changes people? I closed my eyes. I should have been more careful. Rebirth is a truth no official report can hold. It's an expression, I said. My grandmother uses it. Kong watched me through the mirror. She did not believe me, but she was too practical to chase ghosts while holding a living scandal. You anticipated her. Yes. Why? That question had followed me across lives. Why had I known where the knife would enter? Why had I stopped trusting a girl everyone liked? Why had I documented things no 17-year-old should think to document before dawn? The easy answer was suspicion. The true answer was memory. I chose something between them. Because last semester she changed our volunteer roster and blamed Mincio. Everyone believed her until the CCTV showed otherwise, but nobody reported it because the festival still worked. Kang's eyes narrowed. That had happened. I had forgotten about it in the first life, because it seemed small compared with catastrophe. Small things are rarely small. They are rehearsals. And she asked. Because she asked for my list 3 times yesterday after you said no duplicates. Because she brought me coffee this morning even though she knows I don't drink it before travel. Because she called the P1 bus a route revision before any staff member announced one. Kong turned back to the road. You should have come to me earlier. A bitter laugh pressed against my teeth, but I swallowed it. Adults love earlier. They ask why children do not report the snake before it bites, forgetting how often they call the first hiss imagination. I came when I had proof, I said.
Kong accepted that.
Perhaps she respected it. Perhaps she only understood liability. Either way, it was enough. At 6:41, we reached the assessment center. The 2 official buses were parked outside the east entrance. Students stood in lines under the glass canopy, subdued but present. Present. That word glowed. In another life, this entrance had been closed to them forever. Now they were here with their admission cards, route numbers, and shaken faith. As I stepped out of Kang's sedan, 47 heads turned. The first emotion I saw was not gratitude. It was discomfort. They had boarded the wrong bus. They had followed Yura. They had believed the lie quickly. My existence now reminded them of their own near failure. I understood. I did not need them to love me. I needed them to remember accurately. Mr. Choi hurried toward us. All students accounted for. Registrations still open. His voice cracked on the last word. Kong handed him the official list. Take them in. Hannah stays with me for document verification, then joins. Yes, Vice Principal. He looked at me, guilt flickering across his face. In the old life, he had looked at me the same way after signing my punishment. Guilty, but relieved it was not him. This time, the guilt arrived before the damage. That made it useful. Hannah, he said quietly, good work. It was not an apology. Not yet. But good work was better than you ruined us. I nodded once and followed Kong inside. The integrated assessment center was colder than the school, all glass walls and polished floors, the kind of place designed to make nervous students feel underdressed no matter how clean their uniforms were. Staff moved behind registration tables with barcode scanners. Posters displayed instructions for the academic simulation, written exam, group problem solving, emergency logistics, leadership interview. This assessment mattered because it combined university recommendation points, municipal scholarship eligibility, and the final leadership certification our school loved bragging about in brochures. In the first life, missing it had not just been embarrassing, it had rewritten futures. Miho lost his engineering recommendation. Jisu's theater scholarship required attendance. Yunchi's parents used the failure to send her abroad against her will. Even students who hated me had suffered in ways I later learned from rumors, articles, and the cruel archive of social media. I was not a saint. I remembered their accusations. I remembered the milk carton thrown at my back. I remembered the anonymous account that posted my home address. But watching them file safely through registration, I felt something heavier than revenge. Grief for the life where none of us had escaped the trap. Kong took me to a side office where an assessment official copied the final list and the fake one. The official, a severe woman with a pearl brooch, kept glancing at me as if trying to decide whether I was impressive or troublesome. Student CO claimed a route revision? She asked. Yes, Kong replied. Without authorization. And an entire class boarded a practice bus? Temporarily. The official's lips tightened. The municipal board will need a report. Kong nodded. They'll get one. I watched the photocopier light slide over both pages again and again. Official.
Fake.
Official.
Fake.
It felt almost too simple now. 2 stacks of paper instead of 3 years of screaming. But paper had always been the battlefield. Yura knew that. She changed lists, screenshots, rosters, sign-in sheets. She understood that institutions trust documents more than children. I had learned from my executioner. When the copies were done, Kong returned the original folder to me. Keep this until after the assessment. Shouldn't you keep it? I asked. I will after your registration. Until then, I want everyone to see you holding the correct copy. That surprised me. Kong was not warm, but she was strategic. Rumors move faster than reports, she said, as if reading my face. Let them see the truth attached to you before someone attaches something else. For the first time that morning, I felt a strange, reluctant respect. Maybe in the old life, if I had reached her before the lie hardened, she might have helped. Or maybe not. It did not matter. This calm existed now. I walked out of the office with the red folder visible against my chest. Students waiting near registration turned. Some whispered. I did not hide. I let them see. Yura had spent years building power by controlling what people saw first. Today, they saw me with the sealed official list, Kong beside me, and no tears on my face. My group assignment placed me in Team D with 5 classmates who had all, in the previous life, given statements against me. Of course, the universe has a cruel sense of symmetry. There was Jisu, dramatic and sharp-tongued, Miho, who joked when guilty, Unchai, quiet enough to be mistaken for kind, the science twins, Dabin and Dawn, who shared one brain and 2 sets of grudges, and me. The group problem-solving task involved designing an emergency evacuation plan for a fictional school trip after a bridge closure. I almost laughed when the prompt appeared on the screen. Transportation logistics. Route verification. Chain of command. The assessment center might as well have handed me a knife and asked me to describe its handle. We should choose one leader, Miho said awkwardly.
Nobody looked at me.
Then everyone looked at me. Jisoo cleared her throat. Hannah should do documents.
Why?
Dabin asked, then immediately flushed because the answer stood behind us like a bus marked P1. Jisoo crossed her arms. Because she's obviously good at not losing the real list. It was not an apology either. It was sarcasm wearing admiration badly. I accepted it because imperfect shifts are still shifts. I'll manage verification, I said. But leadership should rotate by section. That way no single person can alter the route without cross-check. The room went quiet. Eunchai looked down at her paper. Dawn whispered, "That's actually the safest answer." We worked. At first they avoided mentioning the morning, but the task kept dragging us back to it. Every time someone suggested trusting a student leader's announcement, another person flinched. Every time someone proposed a single clipboard, eyes moved to me. Finally, halfway through the planning sheet, Miho put down his pen. "Did Yura really take your clipboard from your room?" The others froze, grateful and terrified that someone had asked. I did not look up from the route map. Yes. And the list was fake? Yes. Did you know she would? Jisoo asked. Her tone was not accusing exactly. It was hungry. People love foresight after danger. It makes survival feel designed. I knew she wanted the list, I said. I didn't know how far she'd go. That was mostly true. I had known exactly how far she would go because I had already fallen that distance. Eunchai spoke so softly, I barely heard her. We all got on. The silence after that was the most honest thing in the room. Not sorry. Not thank you. We all got on. The first step toward truth is not apology. It is accurate memory. I placed the official assessment route card in the center of the table. Then write that into the plan, I said. Never board a vehicle based only on a verbal revision. Check signage, official list, staff confirmation, and route code. Dabin nodded quickly and wrote it down. The twins added a double signature system. Jisoo proposed passenger verification before departure. Miho suggested a rule that practice vehicles park separately from official routes. Eunchai added parent notification protocols. Our fictional evacuation plan became, accidentally and perfectly, an autopsy of the crime Yura had tried to commit. When we presented it, the judges praised our unusual realism. I stood at the front with my classmates beside me and did not laugh. Realism is what trauma is called when it becomes useful. By lunch, the first wave of rumors had mutated into shapes so absurd they almost entertained me. One version said Yura had discovered a kidnapping plot and I had misunderstood. Another said I had hacked the transport office to frame her because I wanted student council president. A third claimed Mr. Beck was secretly my uncle. That one impressed me with its creativity. But rumors need oxygen, and Kong had sealed most of the vents. She sent an official message to all grade 12 parents at 10:18 a.m., precise enough to wound. An unauthorized duplicate transport document was identified before departure. No students missed registration. Investigation pending. Official transport lead Han Hannah retained the sealed final document and reported the discrepancy. I read the message 3 times in the bathroom stall with my hand over my mouth. Official transport lead reported the discrepancy. In the first life, the school's message had said, due to a student-prepared transport error, Class 12-3 arrival was delayed beyond registration. Investigation pending. No name then, but everyone knew. Passive language had buried me alive. This time, active language built a fence around the truth. My phone buzzed so violently it almost slipped into the sink when I came out. Messages. Dozens. Some from classmates asking what happened. Some from students in other classes pretending concern while fishing for details. One from my mother. Are you okay? The school sent a message. Did you eat breakfast? That broke me more than anything else. In the first life, my mother's messages after the disaster had gone from worried to frantic to exhausted. Tell me what happened. The parents are calling the shop. Why are they saying you changed the buses? Hannah, answer me. Later, after compensation letters arrived, she stopped asking what happened and started asking how much we could pay this month. Now her first concern was breakfast. I leaned against the bathroom wall and breathed until the tears went back where they belonged.
I typed, I'm okay.
I kept the correct list. I'll explain after the assessment. Please don't answer unknown calls. Her reply came instantly. I trust you. 3 words. In the old life, she had said them too, but the world had drowned her out. This time, I screenshotted them like evidence of another kind. When I returned to the lunch hall, the class went quieter. Not silent, just quieter. Jisoo waved me over before she could lose her nerve.
Sit here, she said.
Yura's old seat beside her was empty.
I sat.
The food tasted like cardboard, but eating felt victorious. Miho pushed a carton of milk toward me, without looking directly at my face. For the coffee you didn't drink, he muttered. My chopsticks paused. What? Yura told people you were acting weird because you refused her coffee. He scratched his neck. I thought that was rude earlier. Now I'm thinking maybe you're smarter than us. I looked at the milk carton, then at him. Don't drink things people insist on giving you before important events. That sounds like a proverb from a crime grandma. It should be. Jisoo snorted. The laugh was small, but it cracked the lunch table open. For the first time since waking, I felt 17 instead of ancient. The leadership interview was scheduled after lunch, and that was where Yura made her next move without being physically present. The interview room had 3 judges, 2 cameras, and 1 chair positioned beneath lighting designed to expose sweat. I entered with a red folder now surrendered to Kong, my hands empty, my pulse steady. The center judge, a man with a silver tie, looked down at his tablet.
Hanhana, correct.
Yes. Your morning involved a transport irregularity. Yes. We've been instructed not to ask about ongoing disciplinary matters, but this assessment includes crisis leadership. Are you comfortable reflecting on what happened in general terms? In the first life, panels asked questions like traps. This time, a trap was just a structure I could map. Yes.
He leaned back.
What is the primary leadership failure when a group boards the wrong transport? I could have said misinformation. I could have said poor signage. I could have said lack of teacher oversight. Instead, I said, the primary failure is allowing convenience to outrank verification. The judges looked up. Good. I continued. Most people do not make dangerous decisions because they are stupid. They make them because someone confident offers a shortcut when they are tired, cold, embarrassed, or afraid of causing delay. A leader's job is not to sound certain. A leader's job is to slow the group down long enough for reality to be checked. The woman on the left started writing. The silver-tied judge asked, and if the person offering the shortcut has social trust? Then the system should be strong enough that trust is not the only safety mechanism. Meaning, documents should have controlled copies. Route changes should require named staff authorization. Students should know where to verify information. Teachers should not lend authority symbols informally. Practice routes should be physically separated from official departures. And anyone who raises a discrepancy should not be treated as disruptive just because the group wants to move. My voice remained calm, but inside, another Hannah was standing in a courtyard screaming while everyone told her to stop making things worse. The judge watched me. You sound as if you've thought about this before. I have. Why? A small, dangerous question. I folded my hands. Because being responsible for classmates means imagining the mistake before it becomes irreversible. That satisfied them. It also satisfied me because it was true in a way they could understand. The interview ended with the woman asking what I would do if blamed unfairly during a crisis. I almost smiled. Preserve evidence, protect people first, address reputation second, and avoid emotional arguments until facts are secured. That's unusually restrained. Restraint is not weakness, I said. It is timing. When I left, my legs trembled, so suddenly, I had to grip the hallway rail. Not because I had performed badly. Because I had answered the questions I wished someone had asked before destroying me. Through the window at the end of the hall, I could see the bus parking area. Practice bus P1 was not there, of course. It was still back at school, detained like a guilty animal. But for a second, reflected in the glass, I saw it anyway. Amber lights.
Frost.
Yura smiling. Then the reflection shifted, and it was only me. The assessment ended at 4:10 p.m., and by then the official investigation had grown teeth. Kong had not merely checked the faculty room camera. She had pulled the dorm corridor footage, the transport office entry log, the printer history, and Mr. Choi's desk access record. The spare lanyard had indeed been taken from his drawer at 5:03 a.m., 15 minutes before Yura knocked on my door. The dorm footage showed her entering the 4th floor at 5:21 and leaving at 5:25 with something flat tucked under her coat while I was in the bathroom washing my face. My locked room was not visible clearly, but the master key cabinet was. Another camera showed her returning a temporary maintenance key to the student council office at 5:26. That detail chilled me more than the stolen clipboard. In the first life, I had never known how she entered. I had blamed myself. Thought perhaps I left the door open. Perhaps I was careless.
No.
She had used a maintenance key. She had planned enough to access rooms. She had probably done it before. When Kong told me this in the assessment center office, her face was carved from stone. "We are involving the police liaison for unauthorized access," she said. "The school will notify your guardian."
My guardian.
My mother. For a dizzy moment, I imagined my mother receiving this version of the call. Not your daughter ruined everyone, but your daughter's room was entered. Your daughter preserved evidence.
Your daughter was right.
The reversal was so sharp it almost hurt. What about the fake screenshots? I asked. Kang's mouth tightened. Already circulating in 2 parent chats. Our IT staff compared them with your school account logs. No matching messages. The timestamps overlap with a period when your account was inactive and your device was locked. Can they prove who made them? Not yet. But the parent who first posted them said they received them from Yura's mother. Of course. Seo Yura's mother was a woman who wore pearls to school meetings and smiled like she was forgiving everyone for being poorer than her. In the first life, she led the compensation campaign, cried on television about children's stolen futures, and called my mother a woman who raised a careless daughter. I had watched that clip so many times, I memorized the exact angle of her chin. Now she had deployed screenshots before the day was even over. The web was larger than Yura. Blood taught spiders how to spin. Kong slid a printed statement form toward me. Write only what you personally saw and did.
No speculation.
I know. She paused. Do you? I met her eyes. Yes. For some reason, that made her expression soften by 0.5 millimeter. Good. I wrote for 42 minutes. I wrote about the sealed folder, Yura's visit, the coffee I did not drink, the decoy left in my room. There I hesitated. Admitting the decoy was risky. It could make me look manipulative. But truth with omissions becomes a door for liars. I wrote it carefully. I suspected an unauthorized attempt to access the list because Seo Yura repeatedly requested it after duplication was forbidden. I left an outdated draft visibly separate from the official sealed folder and did not represent it as official to any person. I retained the sealed final copy. I did not instruct anyone to board P1. Kong read that section twice. This will be questioned, she said. I know. Why include it? Because she'll accuse me of planting it.
She already has.
Then better they hear my version before hers becomes the frame. Kong nodded once. You learn quickly. I thought of rain, headlights, hospital light, and 3 years of losing everything. No, I said quietly. I learned slowly. This is just the first time it helped. When we returned to school at 5:30 p.m., parents had already begun gathering near the main building. Their cars lined the curb like an accusation. In the first life, that crowd had been a storm waiting for my face. This time, the storm had no single direction. Some parents clutched phones. Some demanded details from security guards. Some looked embarrassed because they had already forwarded fake screenshots and were now trying to unsend their certainty. My classmates exited the buses in clusters, quieter than usual after a major assessment. No one ran to their parents with bright stories. They carried the morning home with them, heavy and still unnamed. I saw my mother before she saw me. She stood near the ginkgo tree in her work apron under a padded coat, hair escaping its clip, face pale from worry. She must have closed the shop early. In the old life, she arrived later, after the damage had formed, after parents had shouted at me until my knees buckled. She had pushed through the crowd yelling my name, and someone had called her shameless. This time, when she saw me, she did not ask questions. She opened her arms. I walked into them like a child and a ghost at once. "You ate," she whispered into my hair. I laughed, then almost cried. "Yes." "Good. Then we can be angry properly." That was my mother. Practical order. Food first, fury second. Over her shoulder, I saw Yura's mother sweep into the courtyard in a camel coat, pearls glowing at her throat, mouth already shaped for public injury. Yura walked beside her, eyes swollen but dry now, wearing the fragile expression of a girl wronged by complexity. Students moved aside. Parents turned. The stage assembled itself around her because people like Mrs. Seo do not enter spaces. They recruit them. Vice Principal Kong, Mrs. Seo called, voice ringing. "I demand to know why my daughter has been isolated and humiliated without proper process." Kong, who had been speaking to the police liaison near the entrance, turned slowly. "Mrs. Seo, we are following process." My daughter tried to help after Hannah mishandled the list. My mother stiffened. I touched her sleeve. "Not yet." Kang's eyes sharpened. "That is not supported by the current evidence." "Evidence?" Mrs. Seo laughed, a polished little sound. "You mean a story created by a student who conveniently held the official copy while my daughter was made to look foolish?" The old fear moved through me like a reflex. This woman had ruined my mother once. She knew how to weaponize class, tone, and maternal grief. But today Kong had paper, footage, timestamps, and a mood too cold for pearls. The current evidence includes unauthorized access to a dormitory floor, possession of a student's clipboard, use of a staff lanyard removed without permission, a duplicate transport list assigning students to an incorrect practice bus, driver testimony, and messages you circulated containing screenshots, not verified by the school system. Each item landed like a stone dropped into a shallow bowl. Parents murmured. Mrs. Seo's smile did not vanish, but it hardened at the edges. "Are you accusing my daughter publicly?" "No," Kong said. "I am correcting your public accusation." Somewhere behind me, Miho whispered, "Oh, she's dead." Jisoo elbowed him, but not hard. Mrs. Seo turned her gaze on me then, and for one horrible second I was back in the disciplinary hall of my first life, 18 years old, exhausted, listening to this woman tell a board that poverty often teaches children to be careless with other people's futures. Her eyes moved over my mother's apron, my plain shoes, the red mark on my wrist from gripping the folder all day. She smiled gently, which was worse than anger. "Hannah," she said, "I understand you were under pressure. No one wants to blame you if you simply admit there was confusion." My mother took one step forward. I stopped her again. This sentence belonged to me. "There was confusion," I said. Mrs. Seo's smile brightened. "Exactly. Your daughter created it." The smile died. The courtyard heard it happen. Mrs. Seo's voice lowered. "Be careful." I was careful. That's why the class reached the assessment center. A few students shifted behind me. Not cheering. Not yet. But standing closer than before. Mrs. Seo looked past me at them, calculating whether the crowd could still be turned. "Children make mistakes," she said. "It is cruel to destroy a young girl over a misunderstanding." I thought of my mother selling her shop. I thought of the delivery truck. I thought of Yura, smiling through the bus window. "Then why did you send fake screenshots to parents before the investigation finished?" I asked. Her pupils tightened. "I forwarded what I received." "From who?" "Concerned parents." "Which ones?" Silence. Kang's mouth almost curved. Mrs. Seo recovered by lifting her chin. "I do not have to answer a student." "No," Kong said. "But you will answer the committee." That was when Yura broke formation. "Mom," she whispered. Not loudly, but I heard panic in it. The first real panic of the day. Not fear of being misunderstood. Fear of being exposed by someone else's overreach. Mrs. Seo ignored her. Committee? For a boarding error that caused no harm. No harm because it was prevented, Kong said. Attempted harm still matters. Attempted harm. The phrase sank into me. In the first life, everyone treated the result as the only crime. Missed assessment, closed doors, lost scholarships. But here was the truth I had not understood until Rebirth gave me a second map. Harm begins before impact. It begins when someone decides your future is acceptable collateral. Yura had decided that long before the bus moved. Mrs. Seo had decided it again when she pushed fake screenshots into parent chats. The fact that I stopped the wheels did not make their hands clean. A police liaison approached Kong and murmured something. Kong nodded. Then she faced Mrs. Seo. Your daughter will remain on campus with a guardian for formal questioning regarding unauthorized access and document falsification. You may accompany her. Hannah and her guardian will provide statements separately. Mrs. Seo's face flushed. This is absurd. So, was an entire class boarding a practice bus, Kong replied. Yet here we are. This time, Jisoo did not hide her laugh. The questioning took place in 3 separate rooms. I sat with my mother in the counseling office, which smelled of peppermint tea and old tissues. A police liaison asked careful questions while a school administrator typed. My mother held my hand under the table, so tightly our fingers ached. I told the story again. The red folder, the coffee, the knock, the decoy, the stolen clipboard, the public claim that my copy had issues, the fake screenshots, the phone call in Kang's car. When I mentioned putting Yura on speaker, the liaison looked up. Was the call recorded? I paused. In this country, recording rules were complicated enough that I did not want to lie.
No.
But Vice Principal Kong and her assistant heard it. Kong, in the corner, nodded. The liaison wrote that down. My mother stared at me, and I knew she was seeing not just what happened, but how close it had come to becoming something worse. After the questions, while the administrator printed our statement, my mother turned to me. Why didn't you tell me you were worried? That question hurt because beneath it lived another. Why did you carry this alone? I could not tell her that in another life I had told her everything too late, and she had carried it until it crushed her. I wasn't sure, I said. I didn't want to scare you without proof. She brushed my hair behind my ear the way she did when I was small. You can scare me without proof. I am your mother. That is included. I laughed, and this time the tears came, quiet and embarrassing. She pretended not to notice until the administrator handed us tissues. When we left the room, the hallway was nearly empty. Through a glass panel, I saw Yura in the conference room with her mother.
She was no longer crying.
She was yelling. Her face twisted, hands moving sharply, all softness gone. Mrs. Seo sat rigidly, lips pressed white. I could not hear the words, but I did not need to. Webs tear inward when spiders panic. As I watched, Yura turned and saw me through the glass. For once, neither of us smiled. The hatred in her face was naked now, and because it was naked, it looked smaller. Dangerous still, but smaller. She mouthed something. Maybe you planned this. Maybe I'll ruin you. Maybe I hate you. I lifted my hand, not in a wave, but to show my empty palm. No list.
No weapon.
No fear she could use. Then I walked away with my mother. The school suspended Yura that evening pending disciplinary review, but consequences in elite schools do not fall straight down. They hit money first, then reputation, then bend around influence unless something blocks them. Mrs. Seo tried everything. By 9 p.m., a parent representative had posted a carefully worded message suggesting multiple students may have participated in an unofficial test of emergency readiness. By 9:30, an anonymous account claimed I had entrapped Yura with a fake list because I was jealous of her student council ranking. By 10, someone leaked a cropped image of me standing calmly while the class sat on P1, captioned, "She watched everyone bored and said nothing." That one spread fastest because it contained a piece of truth sharpened into a lie. I had watched. I had said nothing for a few minutes. The difference between prevention and malice can look thin when flattened into a screenshot. In the old life, such posts would have sent me spiraling. I would have replied too quickly, explained too much, fed the crowd until they grew teeth. This time, I sat at our kitchen table while my mother reheated soup and opened a blank document. Not a rant. A timeline. 5:03. Lanyard removed. 5:12. I woke. 5:18. Message to Kong. 5:21. 5:25. Yura on dorm floor. 5:27. Yura at my door. 5:36. Seal verified by Mr. Choi. 5:49. Yura announced fake revision. 5:52. Official folder opened. 5:55. Kong arrived. 6:14. Official buses departed. Facts do not always beat rumors, but they make rumors work harder. I sent the timeline to Kong, not publicly. She replied at 10:22. Do not engage online. School statement tomorrow. Preserve all posts. Good advice. Hard advice. My fingers itched every time someone called me manipulative. But I had learned something from dying. The first person to speak is not always the person history believes. Sometimes history believes the person who keeps receipts. So I kept them. Screenshots. Links. Usernames. Times. My mother watched me from across the table. You look like a lawyer, she said. I look like someone who doesn't want us to sell the shop. She went still. I regretted the sentence instantly. It carried too much from the other life. What? She asked. I shook my head. Nothing. I know how these parents get. She sat beside me and placed a bowl of soup near my elbow. Then we get worse. Mom. Legally worse. I looked at her. She looked back, deadly serious in her apron with a cartoon radish on it. For the first time all day, I laughed until my ribs hurt. That laughter saved me from checking the posts for 9 whole minutes. At school the next morning, the courtyard had changed geography. Places that used to belong to Yura no longer knew what to do with themselves. The bench near the maple tree, where she held court with her pastel thermos, was empty. The notice board displayed a new printed policy. All transport changes require staff-issued digital confirmation and physical verification. Student leaders may not alter bus allocations. Practice vehicles must park in the west lot. It was amazing how fast institutions could improve when embarrassment threatened them. Students stared at me openly. Some moved aside as I walked. Some whispered. A few nodded, then looked startled at themselves for doing it. I went to homeroom and found my blue clipboard on my desk, sealed in a plastic evidence bag. The crooked cat sticker looked absurdly cheerful. Mr. Choi stood at the front, hands folded. He looked as if he had aged 5 years overnight. When the bell rang, he did not start attendance. He bowed. Not deeply enough for a scandal article, but deeply enough that the room forgot to breathe. Class, he said, voice rough. Yesterday, I failed to maintain proper control over official transport authority. Han Hannah preserved the correct documentation and reported a discrepancy before departure. Because of that, all of you reached the assessment center on time. I apologize to her and to you. The room stayed silent. Teacher apologies are rare enough to be mythological. I did not know what to do with mine when it arrived. Part of me wanted to throw it back because it was late by 1 lifetime. Part of me wanted to cry because it was early by another. I settled for standing. Thank you, sir. My voice sounded calm. My hands did not. Mr. Choi nodded. Then he faced the class. There will be rumors. There will be pressure from outside. You are old enough to understand that repeating unverified claims can cause harm. If you saw something, write it accurately. If you did not see it, do not decorate it. His eyes moved across the rows, stopping on Miho, Jisoo, Unchai, the twins, everyone who had boarded first and thought later. That includes blaming someone for not saving you faster when you did not check where you were going. A flush moved through the room. Sharp, necessary. I looked down at my desk. The apology I needed from classmates might never come in a clean line. People do not like kneeling before the person they almost helped bury. They circle.
They joke.
They offer milk. They sit nearby. They rewrite memory slowly enough to pretend they always knew. After class, Unchai approached me while I was packing. She held a folded page. My statement, she said. I wrote that Yura said your copy had issues before you arrived, and that she told us P1 was final. I took it. Thank you. She swallowed. I also wrote that I boarded without checking. That mattered more. Thank you, I said again, softer. Unchai nodded and left quickly, embarrassed by honesty. By lunch, 12 statements had been submitted. By the end of the day, 31.
Not all for me.
Some to protect themselves. Some because their parents demanded clarity. Some because guilt ferments if left sealed. Motives mattered less than accuracy. The machine Yura built required fog. Each statement opened a window. The disciplinary hearing took place 4 days later in the multimedia room because the formal conference room was too small for the number of adults who suddenly cared about bus signage. I attended with my mother and a student welfare officer. Yura attended with both parents and a lawyer whose shoes cost more than my mother's monthly rent for the shop. Vice Principal Kong sat beside the principal, 2 board members, the police liaison, and the district assessment coordinator. On the screen behind them were documents: official list, duplicate list, corridor footage stills, lanyard access, parent chat screenshots, printer logs. Seeing everything arranged in slides felt surreal. My destruction had once been messy, emotional, shouted through hallways. Yura's exposure was organized in bullet points. She sat across the room in a white blouse, hair straightened, face pale and bare of makeup except for lip tint. She looked smaller without her audience. Or maybe I had grown. Her lawyer spoke first, arguing that Yura had acted under stress, that the duplicate list may have been an unofficial student-made draft, that no actual departure occurred, that my decoy list demonstrated provocation, and that punishment should consider Yura's spotless record. Spotless. That word nearly made me laugh. A spotless record often means the stains were on other people. Kong presented evidence, without flourish. The dorm key. The clipboard. Mr. Beck's statement that Yura told him the route change came from administration. Mr. Choi's statement denying he gave her the lanyard. My message to Kong before the public confrontation. The phone call heard in the sedan. The fake screenshots first circulated by Mrs. Seo. The lawyer objected to implication. Kong replied, "We are not implying. We are sequencing." I wanted to embroider that on a pillow. When it was my turn, the room looked at me with varying degrees of pity, suspicion, impatience, and curiosity. I had written my statement already, but they wanted verbal testimony. My mother squeezed my knee under the table. I stood. Yura finally looked at me.
No tears.
Just hatred wrapped in exhaustion. I realized then that she did not understand why I had changed. To her, I must have seemed monstrous. The soft girl who once apologized for taking up space had become a locked door. She did not know she had built that door herself. I did not authorize any route revision, I said. I did not instruct any student to board Practice, Bus P1. I retained the official sealed final copy because Vice Principal Kong told me duplication was prohibited. I suspected Seo Yura would try to access the list because she repeatedly asked for it and arrived at my room before boarding with coffee and an offer to help. I left an outdated draft visible inside my room to confirm whether unauthorized access would occur, but that draft was never presented by me to any student or staff as official. Seo Yura entered the boarding area with my clipboard, a staff lanyard, and a list assigning the class to P1. She publicly stated that my copy had issues. That was false. The lawyer leaned forward. "Miss Han, isn't it true you intentionally allowed your classmates to board the practice bus before speaking?" My mother's hand tightened. I had expected this. Yes. A murmur moved through the room. The lawyer's eyes brightened. He thought yes was a wound. Sometimes yes is armor. Why? He asked. Because if I challenged Seo Yura before she stated the false revision clearly, she could claim simple confusion and still redirect blame to me later. The bus had not departed. Staff were present. Vice Principal Kong had already been alerted. I waited until the false instruction was public and verifiable, then the official list was opened before departure. No student was harmed or delayed beyond registration. The lawyer tried to interrupt, but the district coordinator raised a hand. That is a sound crisis documentation rationale. I watched the lawyer's mouth close. Yura's face went gray. There are few pleasures cleaner than hearing someone expensive fail to make you look foolish. Then the principal asked Yura one question. Not whether she was sorry. Not whether she meant harm. Adults love intentions because intentions can be polished after the fact. The principal asked, "Where did you obtain the duplicate list?" Yura's lawyer leaned toward her, but she was already unraveling. She looked at her mother. Mrs. Seo's face wore silence. Yura looked at her father, who stared at the table as if regretting every check he had ever written. She looked at me last. I did not look away. It was on her desk. Yura whispered. The room shifted. Her lawyer closed his eyes for half a second. In whose room?
Kong asked.
Yura's lips trembled. Hannah's. How did you enter Hannah's room? The door was open. Kong clicked something. The screen changed to a still from the student council office camera, Yura taking the maintenance key. Kong did not speak. She did not need to. The silence became unbearable. Yura's breath hitched. I only wanted to check. With a maintenance key? The police liaison asked. She was going to mess it up. Yura burst out. She always acts like she's the only responsible one, but everyone praises her for carrying papers like a servant. I was class monitor. I should have controlled transport. If she made a mistake, it would affect all of us, so I checked. The draft said P1. I thought. You announced it as a final revision, Kong said. Because I thought it was. Then why say Hannah's copy had issues before comparing it? Yura's mouth opened, closed. Because, for the first time, she had no script. Mrs. Seo stood abruptly. My daughter is overwhelmed. This questioning is coercive. My mother stood too. She was shorter, wearing her best coat with a missing button, but her voice cut cleaner than Mrs. Seo's. Your daughter entered my daughter's locked room with a key. Mrs. Seo turned on her. This is not your place. It became my place when you sent fake screenshots to parents. The room went so still I heard the projector fan. My mother had never confronted Mrs. Seo in the first life. She had been too busy apologizing to people who did not deserve it, trying to reduce the compensation, trying to keep me alive. Here, she stood with both hands flat on the table, eyes bright with a fury so pure it made my throat close. You called my child careless before you knew the facts. You tried to make other parents afraid of her. Do not speak to me about place. Mrs. Seo looked stunned, not because my mother was wrong, but because women like her mistake quiet for permission. The principal called for order. I sat down slowly, heart pounding. My mother sat too, breathing hard. Under the table, I took her hand this time. The decision was not announced that day. Schools prefer to let consequences cool before serving them, especially when wealthy parents threaten appeals. But the rumors shifted immediately. Not vanished. Shifted. Now the anonymous post sounded defensive instead of victorious. Yura's supporters used softer phrases. Overreaction, misunderstanding, pressure, good intentions. My supporters, an unfamiliar category, used harder ones, stolen key, fake list, practice bus, screenshots. The phrase practice bus became a joke and a warning. If someone gave suspicious instructions, students started saying, don't P1 us. It spread beyond our class, then beyond our school. By the following week, a meme appeared of a cartoon bus driving toward a sign reading consequences. I did not love becoming part of school slang, but I preferred it to being a cautionary tale about incompetence. Yura did not return to class. Officially, she was on temporary leave. Unofficially, everyone knew her family was negotiating terms. Withdrawal instead of expulsion, counseling instead of criminal referral, sealed records instead of public discipline. Kong fought harder than I expected. Maybe because Yura had embarrassed the school. Maybe because Kong disliked being manipulated. Maybe because some part of her understood how easily the outcome could have reversed. During those days, my classmates performed guilt in strange, inconsistent ways. Miho brought me milk every morning until I told him I was not a stray cat. Jisoo invited me to sit with her group, and then insulted anyone who stared too long. The twins asked me to review their scholarship essays, which was either trust or audacity. Eunchae gave me a packet of printed witness statements in case the school loses them, which made me think she was learning the right lessons. Mr. Choi became painfully formal with document handling, announcing every paper like a courtroom exhibit. I watched all of it with cautious distance. Forgiveness was not a door I owed anyone on command, but I allowed small bridges. A borrowed eraser. A shared joke. A group chat message answered after 3 minutes instead of never. Rebirth had not made me cold, exactly. It had made me understand temperature control. Warmth given everywhere becomes weather. Warmth given carefully becomes fire. The only person who did not approach me was Yura, until the day she did. It was raining because some scenes have no imagination. I stayed late in the library finishing a scholarship reflection on crisis leadership, a prompt that felt almost offensively personal. By the time I packed up, the halls were empty, blue with evening. Near the west stairwell, I saw her.
No cream coat.
No curled hair. No audience. She wore a gray hoodie under her uniform blazer, face bare, eyes shadowed. For a second, I thought memory had produced her, the way it sometimes produced the practice bus in Reflections. Then she spoke. You ruined my life. I stopped 3 meters away. Distance matters.
No, she laughed.
Still pretending you're righteous? I said no because I didn't ruin it. I interrupted you ruining mine. Her hands curled. You set me up. You entered my room. Because you wanted me to. You had a choice. You left bait. You took it. Rain ticked against the windows. Her face twisted, and beneath the anger I saw something rawer. Disbelief. Why did you change? She asked. You were easy. There it was, the closest thing to honesty she had ever given me. Not kind. Not accidental.
Easy.
The word should have hurt. Instead, it clarified. In my first life, I had spent years asking why she chose me. Was I unlucky? Had I offended her? Did she hate me for a reason I missed? The answer was simpler and uglier. I was easy. I died, I said quietly. Yura blinked. The hallway seemed to inhale. I should not have said it. But some truths are not meant to be believed. They are meant to be released. What? She whispered. I smiled faintly. You asked why I changed. She stared at me, searching my face for mockery. You're insane. Maybe. You think acting mysterious makes you powerful?
No.
Evidence does. She stepped closer. I stepped back. Her mouth tightened. My mother says we can still file a complaint. Entrapment. Emotional distress. Defamation. You won't survive a legal fight. Maybe not alone. Who would stand with you? Those classmates? They'll forget by next month. Maybe. I looked at her then, really looked. Without the performance, she seemed both older and younger than before, a child furious that the toy broke when she threw it. But you know what they won't forget? I asked. For 3 minutes, they sat on that practice bus and realized you could sound exactly like authority while leading them the wrong way. That feeling doesn't leave quickly. Her eyes shone, but no tears fell. I hate you. I know. I should have let it happen faster. The words slipped out of her like a dropped blade. We both froze. Her face changed as she realized what she had admitted. Not to a room, not to Kong, not on speaker. Just to me.
No proof. No witness.
Only the truth standing between us, breathing. In the first life, that sentence would have destroyed me because no one would believe I heard it. This time, I did not need it. I had enough. I tilted my head. That's the difference between us, Yura.
What?
You still think the worst thing is being caught. I walked past her, not brushing her shoulder, not giving her a dramatic final line. The old Hannah would have wanted one. Reborn Hannah understood that silence can be an ending too. Behind me, Yura whispered, Hannah. I kept walking. The stairwell swallowed my footsteps. And for once, I did not look back to see if she was crying. The final decision came 2 weeks later. Seo Yura withdrew from Hanul International Academy for personal reasons, effective immediately. Her student leadership certificate was revoked. Her assessment results were invalidated due to conduct violations. The school referred the unauthorized dorm access to the police liaison, though the final legal outcome was softened into community service, counseling, and a sealed juvenile record after her family's lawyer performed whatever expensive magic rich parents purchase in private rooms. Mrs. Seo resigned from the Parent Advisory Council after the fake screenshot trail became impossible to explain politely. Mr. Beck lost his contract with the school transport company for accepting student-issued route changes and failing to verify passenger assignments. Mr. Choi received an administrative warning and became, somewhat hilariously, the strictest transport supervisor in the district. Vice Principal Kong implemented a digital verification system with QR codes, staff pins, and route boards large enough to guide aircraft. The official report never mentioned Rebirth. It did not mention my first life, my mother's lost shop, the hospital corridor, the truck, the grave I never saw. Reports are small containers. They hold dates, signatures, findings. They cannot hold the weight of a second chance. But when I read the final paragraph, due to timely reporting by student transport lead Han Hannah, no assessment access was lost. I placed my hand over the page and let myself feel something close to peace. Not complete peace. Complete peace is for people who have not seen how quickly a life can be stolen with stationery. But enough. Spring arrived early that year. The ginkgo tree by the gate turned soft green, and the practice bus parking space was repainted with bold yellow letters, "Training vehicles only." Every time I passed it, I felt the old morning flicker at the edge of my vision. Hazard lights.
Frost.
Yura's silver pen. My classmates' faces behind the windows. Then the present would settle over it. Students laughing. Teachers checking route boards. My mother texting me photos of new cake displays from the shop she had not sold. I won the Municipal Crisis Leadership Scholarship, partly because our assessment presentation scored highest, partly because the interview judges remembered my line about convenience outranking verification. Jisoo claimed she knew I would win because I had main character trauma energy, which was the sort of compliment only she could make sound like an insult. Miho stopped bringing milk after I threatened to assign him to P1 permanently. Eun-chae and I became something cautious and real. Not best friends, not yet, but two people who could sit together, without pretending the past had no teeth. The twins designed a route check app for the school innovation fair and named the prototype Not P1, which won second place and made Kong sigh so deeply I thought she might retire on the spot. Life did not become perfect. Rebirth does not turn the world kind. It only returns the knife to the moment before it enters and asks whether you have finally learned to move. I still had nightmares. In them, the bus doors closed before I could speak, or the folder dissolved in my hands, or my classmates turned with the same furious faces from the first life. But when I woke, my room was my room. My door was locked, and the red folder was gone because the day it belonged had ended. On graduation morning, months later, I found a small envelope tucked into my locker. No name on the front. Inside was a printed photograph from the assessment day, taken by someone near the East Gate. In it, Practice Bus P1 sat with its doors open. Students filled the windows, confused and half awake. Yura stood near the steps holding my clipboard. Mr. Choi looked alarmed beside me. And I stood in the foreground with a red folder against my chest, calm enough to look almost cruel if you did not know the story. On the back, someone had written, "I'm sorry I got on without checking. Thank you for making sure we got off."
No signature.
It could have been Eun-chae. It could have been Miho.
It could have been any of them.
In the old life, I had collected evidence to prove I was not guilty. In this life, I found myself collecting proof that survival had been witnessed. I slipped the photo into my bag and went to the auditorium. Graduation was loud, chaotic, full of flowers and parents and teachers pretending not to cry. My mother wore a navy dress and took so many pictures that my face hurt from smiling. When my name was called for the leadership scholarship, the applause rose from class 12-3 first. Not thunderous.
Not cinematic.
Real applause is messier than revenge fantasies. Some clapped hard. Some clapped because others did. Some clapped while looking ashamed. I walked across the stage anyway. At the podium, I looked out at the rows of uniforms, the teachers, the parents, the empty space where Yura would have sat if she had not mistaken control for leadership. For one dangerous second, I imagined the other timeline layered over this one, No applause, no scholarship, no mother smiling. Only closed doors and a practice bus arriving at the wrong campus, with all our futures trapped inside. Then, the principal handed me the certificate, and the paper was solid in my hands. Solid matters. After the ceremony, Vice Principal Kong found me near the route board, of all places. She looked at the board, then at me. University plans? She asked. Public administration and safety policy, I said. She raised an eyebrow. Not law. Too many lawyers helped the wrong people in my life. Kong almost smiled. Fair. We stood in silence while graduates streamed past us, carrying flowers, balloons, ridiculous plush toys. Finally, she said, you handled that morning better than most adults would have. Coming from Kong, this was practically a parade. I had motivation. Anger? Memory. She looked at me sharply, the way she had in the car when I mentioned death. I met her eyes. Neither of us explained. Some adults are intelligent enough to leave sealed folders sealed. Kong nodded once. Then use it well. She walked away, charcoal coat moving like a closing curtain. I looked at the route board again. Bus 2. Bus 3. Training vehicles west lot only. Clear lines. Named authority. Verification steps. Such boring things. Such beautiful things. People think revenge is the moment your enemy falls. They are wrong. Revenge is the morning after, when the system they used against you no longer opens for them. Revenge is your mother keeping her shop. Revenge is classmates learning to read the sign before boarding. Revenge is a sealed folder staying sealed until the right eyes are watching. Revenge is not becoming kind again too quickly for the comfort of people who benefited from your softness. But it is also not living forever beside the practice bus. At some point, you step away from the curb. That evening, after the flowers wilted slightly and my mother fell asleep on the couch with the graduation program still in her hand, I took the anonymous photograph from my bag and placed it in a plain box with a scholarship letter, the official report, and the first timeline I had written at our kitchen table. I did not keep the poison coffee can. I had handed it to Kong for testing, and it turned out not to contain anything dramatic like sedatives, only a high dose of laxative powder dissolved badly enough that lab staff found residue near the rim. In another life, that had been enough to put me in the bathroom while my future boarded the wrong bus. Small cruelty, practical cruelty. Yura's specialty. I kept the lab note too. Not because I wanted to stare at it forever, but because forgetting is not the same as healing. Then I opened my window. The city smelled like rain and fried dough from the street stall below. A bus passed at the corner, ordinary and blue, carrying strangers to places they intended to go. I watched it stop, open, close, and leave.
No panique. No frost.
No girl with a silver pen. Just a bus. I thought I would feel victorious in that moment. Instead, I felt tired. Deeply, humanly tired. The kind of tired that comes after carrying a life twice. I let it exist. Then I took out my university application draft and wrote the first sentence of my personal statement. I learned the value of public systems on the morning my entire class almost followed a false list onto a practice bus. It was not poetic. It was accurate. Accuracy had saved me. Years later, people would ask about that line in interviews. They would laugh at first, expecting a quirky school story, and then grow quiet when I explained controlled documents, authority misuse, group compliance, and how easily a confident voice can redirect a crowd. I would not tell them about Rebirth. I would not tell them that somewhere in the dark behind my eyes lived a version of myself who did not keep the correct list, who trusted the wrong girl, who died under a blame she could not wash off. But I would carry her into every policy I wrote, every emergency drill I designed, every training session where I told bored teenagers, check the sign, check the route, check who authorized the change. Sometimes, someone would roll their eyes. Teenagers always do. I never minded. I had once watched 47 intelligent students board the wrong bus because eye rolling felt easier than verification. So I repeated myself. I became inconvenient. I became exact. I became the woman who would rather delay departure than apologize after disaster. And whenever I saw a practice bus parked too close to an official gate, I moved it. But on that graduation night, I was still only Hannah, 17 and Reborn, sitting at my desk while my mother snored softly in the next room. My phone buzzed once. Unknown number. For a moment, my body remembered Yura's voice in Kang's car, sharp and cornered. I almost ignored it. Then I opened the message. No words. Just a photo of a bus ticket to another city, dated that morning. Yura leaving. Or pretending to leave. Or wanting me to know she could still reach me. I stared at it until the screen dimmed. The old Hannah would have panicked. The newly reborn Hannah would have archived it as evidence, called Kong, traced the number, prepared for war. The Hannah I was becoming did something quieter. I screenshotted it, saved it to the box folder, blocked the number, and returned to my personal statement. Not because I believed Yura harmless. Because I refused to make her the center of every road I took from now on. Some threats are real. Some are echoes. Wisdom is learning which ones need barricades, and which ones only want your attention. Outside, another bus sighed at the curb and moved on. I wrote until midnight. Big paragraphs, clean sentences, no unnecessary explanations. When my mother woke and told me to sleep before my brain turned into porridge, I closed the laptop. Before turning off the light, I checked the lock on my door, not from fear, exactly, but respect for what locks are for. Then I slept. In my dream that night, I stood again at the east gate before sunrise. Practice, bus, P1 waited with its doors open. My classmates were inside, faces blurred by fogged windows. Yura stood on the steps holding the fake list, smiling the smile that once ended me. But this time, the dream did not trap me in the old script. I looked down and found the red folder in my hands, sealed, marked, real. Behind me stood my mother, Kong, Mr. Choi, Jisoo, Miho, Unchai, the twins, even the students who never apologized but wrote accurate statements anyway. Not heroes. Not saints. Witnesses. The bus engine growled. Yura lifted the clipboard and called, "Everyone stay seated. This is the final revision." In the old nightmare, I screamed and no sound came out. In this one, I did not scream. I walked to the bus door, placed my hand on the rail, and said, "Show us who authorized it." The bus went silent. Yura's smile cracked. Dawn spread across the courtyard, bright and merciless. One by one, the students stood and stepped off the practice bus. Not running, not crying, just leaving the wrong vehicle because they had finally learned to read the sign. When the last student touched the pavement, the bus folded inward like paper burning without flame. Yura vanished with it, not dead, not punished, simply no longer driving the scene. I woke before sunrise with tears on my face and relief, so wide it frightened me. Outside my window, the street was empty.
No brakes. No hazard lights. No alarm.
Just morning, ordinary and unassigned. That is where the story should end, maybe. With healing. With a clean dream. With the girl who died becoming the girl who lived. But life, unlike school reports, does not end at the paragraph that makes the lesson obvious. So here is the truer ending. I still double checklists. I still dislike silver pens. I still cannot drink canned coffee from people I do not trust. When someone says, "Don't be difficult, just follow everyone else," something inside me stands up cold and ready. I have lost friends by asking for confirmation. I have annoyed teachers, supervisors, drivers, officials, and once an airport gate agent who tried to wave a group through the wrong transfer line. I regret none of it, because I know exactly how disaster sounds before it becomes disaster. It sounds reasonable. It sounds efficient. It sounds like a pretty girl at dawn saying, "Hurry up, we can't be late because Hannah delayed the morning check." It sounds like wheels beginning to move while everyone assumes someone else verified the destination. The second life did not make me fearless. It made me faithful to the pause before obedience. That pause saved my class. That pause saved my mother's shop. That pause saved my name. And if people call me strict, paranoid, dramatic, difficult, cold, or too serious, I smile politely and check the list anyway. Because once, I changed nothing and lost everything. Then I opened my eyes again at 5:12 a.m., with the correct school bus list sealed on my desk and the practice bus waiting below like fate with its engine running. I kept the list. I marked the folder. I watched the liar climb onto the wrong step. I watched the whole class board the practice bus. And then, before the wheels could steal another life from me, I made everyone get off.